we're going to start off with, I don't think this is a surprise to you, maybe one of the hottest topics that we get through our coaching, through the questions we get at live events, backstage, like we just had at our EntreLeadership one day, hiring. So here's a question. How do I find the right people? I know who to hire when I find them, but how do I find them? That's the big question.
Yeah. Well, my question usually back to that person is, where are you finding the good ones already? It's not, there's not 50 million spots. Like, go after those spots that you're already having luck in. And also, are you creating a culture that people want to work in? And we find our best ones, you know this, by word of mouth. So are you telling your current team members, hey, we have this position open. Do you have any rock stars you know? We don't want your loser friends. We just want your rock stars. Word of mouth is our best utensil when it comes to that.
And then let me ask you, how often do our team recommend somebody that, because I mean, you know, we talk about this, but this is a real question, because there are times where I'm sure they mean well, and that's why we have such a lengthy hiring process, but do speak to that.
Yeah, we definitely have a lengthy interview process. We interview everybody at least 6 to 8 times, which a lot of people think is crazy. We've gotten more efficient over the years for sure as our HR team has grown, but we every once in a while we'll have somebody slip through that's not a good recommendation. But I think because we talk about it so publicly at staff meeting, like, do not send us your donkeys. We will publicly shame you, which of course we wouldn't, but we will publicly shame you if you keep sending us donkeys. People get the memo, and we tie cash to it. So if you send us great people, you get paid for that referral. So it's great for everybody.
It really is. Okay, now we are big fans of Pat Lencioni here. He's got a great book that's kind of become institutionalized here, The Ideal Team Player. He talks about these 3 key qualities. You want somebody who has all 3, humble, hungry, and then people smart. I got a question. How do you spot humble people?
Yeah, it's a tough one.
It is.
You can ask great questions that can get you there. If someone's not willing to tell you about, tell me about a time that you failed. If they dive into that and they really aren't comfortable answering that question, you know, they kind of hem and haw or give you a lame answer, then you know they probably aren't comfortable talking about failings or humility. But I think I pick up on it a lot of times just by how people present themselves, how they talk about things. If you ask them about, tell me about a time that you really hit it out of the park, do they talk about, I did this, or are they talking about, man, this team is awesome and this person did this and this person did that? You pick up pretty quickly on whether they need to take all the glory or whether they feel like they're part of a team and it was a team effort.
We had a question about the interview process, and I'm going to kind of edit it on the fly here, because I'd like to know, of those 6 to 8, you got the HR side of it, and then it gets in here to the team. At what point do you get involved, and then what is your type of interview? Describe that for people. What have you fashioned as kind of the, okay, for me, Sarah, this is what I need to be asking. This is what I'm looking for.
It depends on the role. So if I'm hiring for one of my top leaders, I'm asking a lot of questions. I'm using real examples, and I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of those questions are from things that I learned the hard way. You know, that I flash back to that team member that was really hard to deal with. We had a difficult situation. I think, I do not want to relive that. So I just am honest in those situations. Hey, here's what's going to happen. How would you respond in these situations? If it's for a lot of times now, I will be interviewing for a half day where the candidate comes in for a half day, they meet with HR, they meet with the person who would be their direct leader, they meet with a couple of people. When I'm in that interview, by the time they get to me, I'm not vetting their skills as a developer. I mean, the reality is I have no coding background. I am relying on that director of development to have vetted that. By that time, I'm really vetting, are they a culture fit and have expectations been set appropriately? At Ramsey, we have 10 different business units. So each of those business units has a different personality. And our goal is to get that person in the right seat on the bus. So in Entre, you know we love fight bells, we love confetti cannons, we drive hard, we give real feedback. If that kind of environment makes people feel suffocated, it doesn't feel like they're going to thrive in it, I would rather identify that then. And we say, hey, maybe this person would be a better fit on a team that is more of a personality match. So it depends on which position I'm interviewing for, which role that I'm really playing in the.
Got it. Now let's move to, they've made the jump into the team, they're on the team, and what do we do when we've hired a leader, or maybe it's just another team member, and their performance isn't up to par, it's just mediocre at best?
Yes, it's kind of like boiling water.
Yeah.
The first time I go in, I assume that they just don't know. So I just very kindly, but very clearly say, hey, this surprises me. There's this gap. Here's my expectations, but here's where you're operating. Right. Are you aware that that's happening? And usually people respond really well to that. I'm not trying to put them on the defensive. I'm just kind of pointing out something that they may not realize. Now, if they get defensive, that's a whole nother story. If they're still doing that after we talk, I start turning up that heat. So the second time we talk, I'm a lot more clear. And I say, hey, last time we talked about this, I felt like I was pretty clear. Here are my expectations. Let's go ahead and formalize that on paper and talk about, if these are your 5 responsibilities, on a scale of 1 to 5, how do you feel like you're doing on each of these? And if a 4 is the minimum that you need to be at, what are we going to do to close that gap? And then when we meet again, if we're still looking at that and saying we're not closing that gap, I'm starting to say, hey, we've been talking about this for a few weeks now. It doesn't feel like you're closing the gap on this. We start talking about, is this role a fit? Is it an attitude problem? So the heat gets turned up every time we talk, but I'm always clear and I'm always kind about it.